"You're not management material. You can't even keep track of basic client work." Lorraine said it during the morning team meeting while I was standing near the supply shelf refilling the stapler tray. Her voice carried across the entire floor. Heads lifted. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. The humiliation landed like a weight in my chest, pressing down until I couldn't pull in a full breath. I had spent 5 months searching for those reports. 5 months retracing every step, checking every shared drive folder, asking everyone if they'd seen anything. 8 different clients, all gone. If you're listening to this, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment and let me know. My name is Eliana. I bite the inside of my cheek when I'm nervous, a habit I picked up in middle school and never shook. I drink my coffee black because I can't afford cream that doesn't spoil before I finish the carton. On Tuesdays, when the laundromat below my studio runs their industrial dryers, my whole apartment smells like fabric softener and hot lint. I had worked at the firm for 3 years. The first year, I answered phones at the front desk and sorted mail into wooden cubbies that smelled like old varnish. When the junior client liaison quit without giving notice, the office manager asked if I wanted to try the role. I said yes, before she finished the sentence. The work was straightforward but relentless. Tracking service requests, following up on quotes, making sure nothing disappeared into the gap between intention and completion. I was good at it. Clients remembered my name. My manager praised my organizational skills during my first-year review. But 5 months ago, something shifted. It started small. One client report went missing from the shared cabinet. I assumed I'd misfiled it and spent an afternoon checking every drawer and binder. When it didn't turn up, I recreated it from notes and backup files. Then a second report vanished 2 weeks later. Then a third. By the 4th missing file, people started whispering during lunch breaks. By the 8th, Lorraine stopped defending me in departmental meetings. Lorraine had worked at the firm for 12 years. She wore tailored blazers in shades of charcoal and navy, the kind with structured shoulders that held their shape even on wire hangers. She lived in a gated community 20 minutes west of downtown with her husband and 2 kids. Her daughter was applying to private high schools that required entrance exams. Her son played travel hockey on a team that practiced in a rink 2 towns over. She drove a sedan that still had that new interior smell, the one that comes from leather seats and factory-fresh upholstery. I lived in a studio above the laundromat on Maple Street. My furniture came from 3 different yard sales. A kitchen table with uneven legs, a bookshelf missing its bottom support, a desk chair that squeaked whenever I leaned back. I walked to work every morning because my sedan died last February, and the repair estimate was more than I had in savings. The mechanic said it wasn't worth fixing. I left it parked on the street until the city towed it. The firm occupied the 2nd and 3rd floors of a converted textile mill. Exposed brick, high ceilings, windows that rattled when delivery trucks passed below. The building had character, which was what people said when they meant old and uninsulated. In winter, the heating vents clanged and hissed, but barely warmed the far corners. In summer, we propped open the fire exit with a broken desk leg to get cross-ventilation. My workspace sat in the shared client services area near the back, 5 desks arranged in a horseshoe. Lorraine's office formed one wall of the horseshoe, with a glass panel that let her see everyone without leaving her seat. She kept her door half open most days, and I learned to recognize the rhythm of her typing, the way she cleared her throat before picking up her phone, the sound of her pen tapping against her notepad when she was thinking. The missing reports became a pattern I couldn't escape. Clients started calling to ask about delayed updates. Then they stopped calling and started emailing Lorraine directly. Then they stopped emailing and just went quiet. One client switched to a competitor after 16 months of steady work with us. Another threatened to file a complaint with the Regional Trade Association. Each time, Lorraine asked me what happened. Each time, I explained that the file had vanished. Each time, her expression shifted a little further toward doubt. "Maybe you're overwhelmed," she said one afternoon in late June. I was restocking printer paper in the supply closet, and she stood in the narrow opening, her shoulder resting against the frame. "Have you thought about whether this role is still a good fit?" I thought about it constantly. I thought about it when my coworker Jenna started handling accounts I used to manage. I thought about it when the office manager pulled me aside to ask if I needed help with time management. I thought about it every morning when I walked past Lorraine's office and saw her reviewing departmental performance metrics on her monitor. The firm's annual review was scheduled for the third Monday in September. Every department head presented their team's performance to the executive director and the senior partners. Lorraine had been preparing her presentation for weeks. I heard her rehearsing through the half-open door, talking points about efficiency improvements, client retention strategies, team restructuring plans. She practiced the same phrases over and over until they sounded smooth and natural. I started keeping a notebook in my desk drawer. I wrote down every missing file, the date it disappeared, the client name, the last time I remembered seeing it. I made copies of my work logs and saved them to a personal drive. I didn't know what I was preparing for, but I knew I needed a record. The shared kitchenette sat at the far end of the floor, past the copy machines and the storage closets. It had a microwave that sparked when you used it for more than 2 minutes, a refrigerator covered in safety reminders and birthday cards, and a cabinet we used for overflow supplies. The cabinet had 4 drawers. The top 2 held napkins, plastic utensils, and stacks of paper plates left over from the summer picnic. The third drawer held extension cords and spare charging cables. The bottom drawer stuck when you tried to open it, the handle catching on something inside the track. I usually avoided that cabinet, but on a Tuesday evening, in early September, I stayed late to organize the storage area. The office manager had asked someone to clear out old binders and tangled cables before the annual review, and I volunteered because I had nowhere else to be. The laundromat closed at 8. If I went home before then, I'd just sit in my apartment listening to the rhythm of the dryers through the floor. I worked my way through the top drawers first, threw out expired flyers, untangled cables, and wound them into neat loops, stacked binders by year. When I got to the bottom drawer, I pulled the handle. It didn't budge. I yanked harder. The drawer jerked open 6 inches, then stopped. I crouched down and reached into the gap, trying to feel for whatever was blocking the track. My fingers brushed something smooth and cool. Metal. I shifted my grip and pulled again. The drawer lurched open another few inches. I angled my phone's flashlight into the gap. 8 folders. Manila. Labeled with client names and dates. Arranged in chronological order from April to August. Everything I had been blamed for losing. My hands went numb. I pulled the drawer open the rest of the way and lifted the first folder. The label was in my handwriting. Inside were the client requests I'd spent a week tracking down, the notes I'd compiled, the follow-up questions I'd prepared. The second folder was the same. The third, all of them carefully stacked, deliberately hidden, where no one would think to look. I sat back on the floor. The fluorescent light overhead buzzed faintly. Somewhere on the floor below, someone was running water. My throat felt tight. I took my phone out and photographed each folder, the labels, the contents, the drawer itself with all 8 folders visible. My hands shook so badly the first few photos came out blurred. I steadied my wrist against the cabinet frame and took them again. Then I closed the drawer, stood up, walked to the kitchenette and washed my hands under cold water even though they weren't dirty. Dried them on my jeans because the paper towel dispenser was empty. I didn't go home. I sat in the break area with my laptop and opened every photograph. I zoomed in on the labels to confirm the dates. I cross-referenced them with my notebook. 3 of the 8 clients had submitted formal requests for updates that never arrived. 2 had filed complaints about lack of response. 1 had specifically mentioned switching to a competitor in their final message. Lorraine had hidden these files for 5 months. 5 months while I tore apart my workspace looking for them. 5 months while my reputation unraveled in departmental meetings and client calls. 5 months while she stood in front of everyone and suggested maybe I wasn't cut out for this work. The anger came slowly, then all at once. Not the hot, loud kind, the cold kind that sits in your chest and calculates. I opened a new message and started typing. The subject line took me 20 minutes to write. I kept it neutral, professional, found files, review, preparation. The body of the email was shorter than I expected. 3 sentences. I was organizing storage and found these client reports from earlier this year. I wanted to make sure you had them before Monday's review, since some clients mentioned follow-up issues. Let me know if you need anything else prepared. I attached all 8 photographs. Then I hovered my cursor over the send button for a full minute. My finger felt heavy. If I sent this, there would be no taking it back. If I didn't send it, nothing would change. Lorraine would present her metrics on Monday. She would talk about team restructuring. My name would come up as a performance issue. Maybe I'd be reassigned. Maybe I'd be let go quietly in the next round of budget reviews. I added the department director to the CC line. His name was Malcolm, and he had been with the firm for 18 years. He signed off on all hiring decisions and annual raises. He attended every review meeting. If Lorraine was going to present her version of the story on Monday, he needed to see this first. I sent the email at 6:47 p.m. on Thursday evening. Then I closed my laptop, packed my things, and walked home in the dark. The sidewalk smelled like fried chicken from the corner restaurant. A dog barked from someone's fenced yard. My legs felt unsteady, like I'd been standing too long. Friday morning, I arrived at my usual time, 7:53. The building was quiet. The coffee machine in the break room was still warming up, making that low gurgling sound it always made. I logged into my computer and opened my inbox. No response to the email. I checked twice to make sure it had sent. It had. At 8:45, the elevator doors opened, and Lorraine stepped out. Her face looked drawn. She walked past my desk without glancing in my direction, straight into her office. She closed the door. At 9:15, Malcolm called her. I heard his voice through the intercom on her desk phone. "Can you come up for a minute?" His tone was flat, professional, the kind of voice that didn't ask questions. Lorraine grabbed a notepad and a pen. Her hands moved quickly, but her fingers fumbled with the doorknob. She walked to the elevator and pressed the button 3 times in a row, even though the light was already on. The elevator took her to the 3rd floor. Malcolm's office was at the far end, near the corner window that overlooked the loading docks. His door stayed closed for 40 minutes. I kept glancing at the clock on my monitor. 9:16, 9:23, 9:38. Jenna came in and asked if I wanted to grab lunch later. I said sure, even though I wasn't hungry. At 9:56, the elevator opened and Lorraine stepped out. Her blazer was buttoned wrong, the left side higher than the right. Her hair looked smooth, too smooth, like she'd been running her hands through it and then tried to fix it. She walked back to her office and shut the door again. The blinds stayed closed. At 10:30, she came to my desk. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" I nodded and stood up. We walked to the small meeting room near the copy machines. It had a round table and 4 chairs and a whiteboard that still had old notes from someone's brainstorming session. I sat down. She stayed standing. "Why did you copy him?" she asked. "I thought he should know before the review," I said. "Since you're presenting Monday, you could have just told me privately." I looked at her directly. "Like you told everyone privately that I lost those reports?" Her mouth opened. No sound came out. She sat down heavily in the chair across from me. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. "What did he say?" I asked. She stared at the whiteboard behind me. "He wants to know why I had them, why clients complained and I never mentioned it, why I let you take the blame." "What did you tell him?" I said I forgot they were there. Her voice cracked on the last word. He didn't believe me. "Are you going to tell him the truth?" "What truth?" She looked at me now, her eyes red at the edges. "That I accidentally put them in the wrong drawer? That's what happened. It was a mistake." "For 5 months?" She didn't answer. "What happens now?" I asked. She exhaled slowly, like she was trying to steady herself. "He's postponing the review. He wants to meet with me again on Monday. He's pulling my performance files from the last 2 years." I nodded. Neither of us said anything for a long moment. Outside the room, someone started the copy machine. The rhythmic hum filled the silence. "I have to get back to work," I said. She didn't stop me. The weekend crawled by. I cleaned my apartment, walked to the grocery store, sat on my bed and stared at my phone, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. Saturday night, I ate microwaved soup and watched the lights from the laundromat flicker through my window. Sunday, I reorganized my bookshelf and tried to read, but couldn't focus on the words. Monday morning felt different. The office was quieter than usual. Lorraine didn't come in until 9:30, an hour later than normal. She went straight to Malcolm's office without stopping at her desk. The door closed. This time it stayed closed for over an hour. When she came out, her face was pale. She didn't look at anyone. She walked to her office, grabbed her purse and her jacket, and left. The elevator doors closed behind her. Jenna leaned over from her desk. "What's going on?" she whispered. "I don't know," I said, but I did know. I just didn't know how much. Monday afternoon, Malcolm sent an email to the entire department. The review meeting was canceled. He would reschedule it later in the month. No other explanation. People started speculating in the break room, but I stayed at my desk and kept working. Tuesday morning, Lorraine came back. She walked straight to my desk before she even took off her coat. "Please," she said, "can we talk again?" We went back to the meeting room. She sat down immediately this time, her hands folded on the table in front of her. Her nails were painted pale pink, but the polish was chipped on 2 fingers. "Tell him it was a misunderstanding," she said. "Tell him you put them in my drawer by mistake." "Why would I do that?" "Because I'll lose everything." Her voice rose slightly, then dropped again. "He's recommending a formal investigation. They're reviewing all my past performance reports, all my client files, everything." I didn't say anything. "I have a son in private school," she continued. "We just bought a second car. My husband will." She stopped. Her jaw tightened. "Please, what do you want?" I thought about those 8 folders. I thought about 5 months of meetings where I sat in silence while people questioned my competence. I thought about the clients who stopped returning my calls because they thought I'd lost their work. I thought about the morning she stood in front of everyone and said I wasn't management material. "I want you to tell them the truth," I said. She stared at me. "If I do that, they'll fire me." "Maybe they should." Her face crumpled. She started crying, real crying, the kind that shakes your shoulders and makes your breath come in gasps. I'd never seen her cry before. I'd never seen her look anything but composed. I stood up. "I have to get back to work." She didn't follow me. That afternoon, Lorraine submitted her resignation. The office manager sent an email to the department at 3:47 p.m., effective immediately, pursuing other opportunities. "We wish her well." The standard language that meant nothing and everything. People whispered about it for the rest of the week. Jenna asked me if I knew why she left so suddenly. I said I didn't. Another coworker speculated that she got a better offer somewhere else. Someone else said they heard it was personal reasons. No one seemed to know the real story, except me and Malcolm and Lorraine. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought I could go back to my work and rebuild my reputation slowly, one client interaction at a time. But 3 days after Lorraine resigned, a man showed up at the reception desk asking for her. The receptionist explained that she no longer worked here. He asked when she left. The receptionist told him to speak to the office manager. Instead, he walked into the client services area. He was tall, with graying hair and a wedding ring on his left hand. He looked around until his eyes landed on Lorraine's old office. "Which one of you worked with her?" he asked. Jenna raised her hand slightly. "We all did." He walked closer. "Did she work late a lot?" No one answered. "She told me she was working late," he said. His voice was calm, but there was something sharp underneath it. 3-4 nights a week, sometimes Saturdays. Said she had a big project, had to put in extra hours. He paused. "But I just talked to your office manager. She said Lorraine's keycard log shows she left every night by 5:30 for the last 6 months. Jenna glanced at me. I kept my eyes on my monitor. "So where was she?" he asked. No one said anything. The man stood there for another few seconds, then turned and walked back to the elevator. After he left, Jenna exhaled loudly. "That was her husband," she whispered. I nodded. "Do you think she was?" "I don't know," I said, but I wondered. I wondered where Lorraine went all those evenings when she told her husband she was working late. I wondered what she was hiding that was big enough to make her sabotage my career to keep people from asking questions. I wondered if the missing reports were just the visible part of something larger. I never found out, and I realized I didn't need to. Whatever Lorraine had been protecting, it was unraveling now. Not because I exposed it, because she'd built her life on a structure that couldn't hold. The firm operated differently after Lorraine left. Malcolm reassigned her accounts temporarily to Jenna and another senior liaison. He asked me to help coordinate the transition, which meant I spent 2 weeks reviewing every file Lorraine had managed, looking for gaps or inconsistencies. I found 7 client contracts that were about to expire without renewal notices sent. I found 12 outstanding invoices that hadn't been followed up on. I found a spreadsheet where she'd marked 3 client complaints as resolved, even though no resolution notes existed in the files. I documented everything and sent it to Malcolm in a summary report. He thanked me in person, which he almost never did. He stood at my desk with his hands in his pockets and said, "You have good instincts. We should have listened to you sooner." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. 4 weeks after Lorraine resigned, Malcolm called me into his office. The last time I'd been up there was during my annual review 2 years ago. His office had the same brick walls as the rest of the building, but his window faced the street instead of the loading docks. You could see the coffee shop across the way, the one with the chalkboard sign, and the line of people waiting on the sidewalk. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I sat. He opened a folder and slid a single sheet of paper across to me. "We're restructuring the client services team. I'd like to offer you the team lead position." I stared at the paper. It was a formal offer letter, with a salary number that was 30% higher than what I currently made. "It comes with a raise and a discretionary bonus structure," Malcolm continued. "You'd oversee client relations, manage the team, and report directly to me. You'd also get an office." "Lorraine's office?" I asked. "Yes." I looked at the number again. It was enough to fix my car, enough to move out of the studio above the laundromat, enough to stop calculating every grocery purchase, down to the penny. "Can I think about it?" I asked. Malcolm leaned back in his chair. "You've been doing the work already. This just makes it official. But yes, take a day or two if you need to." I took the offer letter home with me. I sat at my uneven kitchen table and read it 3 times. I thought about Lorraine, about where she was now, about whether she'd found another job, or whether she was sitting in her gated community house trying to explain to her husband why she'd resigned so suddenly. I thought about her son's hockey practices, and her daughter's private school applications, and the new car they'd just bought. I thought about the 8 folders hidden in the bottom drawer. I signed the offer letter that night and returned it the next morning. Malcolm announced the promotion in a departmental meeting on Friday. There was polite applause. Jenna hugged me afterward and said she was happy for me. A few other coworkers congratulated me quietly. No one asked why the position had opened up. Everyone already knew. I moved into Lorraine's office the following Monday. The cleaning crew had emptied it completely. No photos, no personal items, no trace that she'd worked there for 12 years. Just a desk, a chair, a filing cabinet, and that glass panel that looked out over the client services area. I brought my notebooks and my pens and the small desk plant I'd kept alive for 2 years despite the poor lighting. I arranged everything carefully. Then I sat down in the chair and looked through the glass at the 5 desks arranged in a horseshoe. It felt strange, not triumphant, not victorious, just strange and quiet and permanent. The first week in the new role, I focused on rebuilding client relationships. I called the 3 clients who had complained about missing reports and apologized for the delays. I explained that we'd had a transition in management and that I was personally overseeing their accounts now. 2 of them were skeptical but willing to give us another chance. The third one agreed to a probationary period. It was more than I expected. I implemented a new tracking system for all client requests. Every file got logged into a shared database with timestamps and status updates. Every team member had access. No more hidden drawers. No more files disappearing into someone's office. Jenna adapted quickly. The other team members took longer, but they came around. By the end of the 2nd month, we'd recovered 4 of the clients who'd left during Lorraine's tenure. By the end of the 3rd month, our client satisfaction scores were the highest they'd been in 18 months. Malcolm mentioned it during a senior leadership meeting. Word got back to me through the office manager, who smiled when she told me, "You're doing good work," she said. I was, but it felt less like success and more like repair, like I was fixing something that should never have been broken in the first place. 6 months after I took the position, I was restocking supplies in the shared kitchenette. It was late afternoon, and most people had already left for the day. I opened the bottom drawer of the cabinet, the one that used to stick. The maintenance crew had fixed the track a few weeks after Lorraine left. It slid open smoothly now. The drawer was empty except for a stack of napkins and a box of plastic forks. I stared at it for a long moment. I thought about the 8 folders. I thought about the night I found them, the weight of them in my hands, the way my whole body went cold when I realized what they meant. I thought about the email I sent. 3 sentences, 8 photographs, 1 decision. I thought about Lorraine's face when she asked me to lie for her, the desperation in her voice, the way she said, "please," like it was the only word she had left. I closed the drawer. Sometimes people ask me how I ended up in this position, how I went from the junior liaison who couldn't keep track of files to the team lead who turned the department around. They ask it casually, like they're making conversation, but there's always curiosity underneath. I tell them the same thing every time. I made sure the right people saw the right information at the right time. They usually nod and say something about being in the right place at the right moment, about luck, about timing. I don't correct them, because the truth is more complicated. The truth is, I could have confronted Lorraine privately. I could have asked her why she hid those files. I could have given her a chance to fix it before anyone else knew. But I didn't. I chose the nuclear option. I copied Malcolm. I made sure there was no way for her to explain it away quietly. I tell myself it was about justice, about holding someone accountable who had power over me and used it to destroy my reputation, about making sure she couldn't do the same thing to someone else. But late at night, when I can't sleep and the laundromat is finally quiet below me, I moved out 4 months ago, but the silence still feels strange. I wonder if it was really about justice, or if it was about power, about taking something from someone who thought they were untouchable. I don't know if that makes me calculating or just human. Maybe there's no difference. What I do know is this. Lorraine made a choice when she hid those folders. She chose her career over mine. She chose her reputation over the truth. She chose to let me drown while she stood on the shore and watched. And when I found those folders, I made a choice too. I chose to let the system do what it was supposed to do. I chose transparency over silence. I chose accountability over mercy. She lost her job. She lost her reputation. She lost whatever she was hiding from her husband, whatever those late nights were really about. Her life unraveled in a matter of days, and I was the thread that pulled first. I think about that sometimes, whether I pulled too hard, whether there was another way, whether the outcome would have been different if I'd chosen differently. But then I remember sitting in that team meeting while she told everyone I wasn't management material. I remember the clients who stopped trusting me. I remember 5 months of questioning myself, wondering if maybe she was right, if maybe I really couldn't handle the work. And I stopped wondering. I still work at the firm. I still sit in the office that used to be hers. I still see her name sometimes in old files or archived emails, and every time, I feel the same quiet certainty I felt the night I sent that message. She built a trap for me. I just made sure she was standing in it when it closed. I don't call it revenge. I call it documentation. I call it transparency. I call it making sure the person responsible was held responsible. But the outcome was the same. She's gone. I'm here. And every time someone praises my leadership, or my organizational skills, or my attention to detail, I think about 8 folders in a stuck drawer and a single email that changed everything. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a like, drop a comment, or subscribe so others can hear it too.